Okay, hey folks, Mark Locklear here with a quick screencast on Chapter 3. So Chapter 3 is how to make decisions. Let me get to the front here. So this chapter covers the basics of if statements, if else statements, logical operators, so things like and, or, not, those kinds of things. And then we finish up with sort of conditional operators and switch statements. So I think most of the content's fairly straightforward. Certainly ask quick questions if you have them, but I'm just going to, I think what I'll do in this screencast is I've got some sample blocks of code or statements here that I just want to show off. And then depending on how much time we have, I'll look at project 3.1, maybe get you started with that. So let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, so first thing I'll do is show off an if-else statement, just talk about a couple things. So notice here we've got this variable called cost, which is the type of that variable is going to be a double. We're setting it to 500. Now notice we've got this if statement here. And so if we say if cost is greater than 100, then we're going to do what's inside this block here. First thing I want you to notice is I've got curly braces here, whereas in this else statement, I don't have curly braces. So essentially the deal there is if you have more than one statement that needs to be included in an if or an else statement, then you're going to want, not only are you going to want to use curly braces, you have to use curly braces, because just as an example, you'll see if I take and cut this off, and let's see if I save this. Yeah, notice I get an error here. So it's C++ syntax actually in the compiler catches it before it lets you go any further. So you have to have these curly braces if you have multiple statements. Now, as an example, if I wanted to get rid of one of these statements and get rid of the curly braces here, I could do something like that if I wanted to. And notice I don't get an error. But again, because I've got more than two statements, I've got curly braces there. Just as an aside too, generally, I personally like to have curly braces even if I've got a single statement. So in a case like this, I would still do something like that. Just from a consistency standpoint, as you're reading down the code, I mean, a big part of coding is just how you format code. And it looks neater to me, and your eye tends to catch, okay, I can quickly look at this and see that, okay, inside my curly braces, I've got a single cout statement. So I would argue that it's sort of good coding practice to include, even if it is a single statement, to use curly braces, just because I think it formats better and your eye tends to catch it better. So that, and again, so if we run this, so in this case, again, we're setting cost to 500. So let's think about it. I'll give you a second to think about it. Which one of these two statements or code paths is going to run? Okay, so I think it's going to be the first if statement, right? Because in this case, cost is 500. Cost is greater than 100. So this is the code that's going to run. And sure enough, if we run this, notice we got cost is greater than 100. And just as cost is greater than 100. Just as a sanity check, if we make this 5, notice our else statement will run. So notice here cost is less than 5. Okay, so easy peasy, right? Okay, let's go on down to our next one. Notice we've got creating another variable called discount here. We're setting it to 0.5. Here I'm doing this if, so here I'm using an and operator. That's what these two ampersands are. So I'm saying this reads, if you just read this like the English language, if cost is greater than 100, in this case we know it is, and discount percent is greater than 0.1, we know it is, then I've just got a simple cout statement that says this is true. Notice I'm not using an else statement here, and also notice I'm not using curly braces. Again, the fact that we've got a single statement that we're attributing to our if statement, then we don't need the curly braces there. Okay, and again, if we run this, we'll see the this is true here. Okay, so again, I just wanted to show that that off this and statement. We could do an or statement here also, which is going to test either or, and we could also put nots in there. And so notice, just so you know, we can put an exclamation in front of, we can put an exclamation in front, and or maybe I need the exclamation here. Nope, that's not right. Give me a second. Let me clarify that. Okay, I had to clarify how that not statement works. So essentially, I was not able to put a not in front of this entire statement. It looks like because of the and statement in there is sort of throwing it off. And it looks like what I can do though is I could do it on a single one of these. So I could say, I could put this not in front of cost is greater than 100. So this read, again, if you're reading this like the English language, if cost is not greater than 100. So essentially you could remove the not and it would be the same thing as this. If cost is not greater than 100 and discount percent is greater than 0.1, then this is true. So in this case, it's going to be false. And if we run this, notice, then we don't get it here. So in fact, I think now that I reverse the logic, I could do that and it would be true. Yeah, so notice we get this is true here. So you can sort of see the challenge just by that example. You get into these double negatives. So be careful about, that's a good example actually of be careful about using not. Like this code works, you know, assuming this is the way we want it to work, it could meet the requirements, but it's not 100% clear. There's probably better ways to write it. So, you know, again, in fact, what we had previously, this statement that we have now is the same as this, which, you know, I think this is much clearer without having that not statement there, the exclamation. So be careful about that. And that's the last thing I wanted to talk about. And I think this is the first time here in chapter 3 we've used a function or a method to execute some type of functionality. In this case, I'm talking about the tolower function. And the tolower function simply takes in a character, a single character, and then it'll turn it into a lowercase character. So in this case, you see I've got this variable customer type R, and I am when I output it, when I do the cout statement, notice I'm doing tolower customer type. Notice I had to put this car in front. That I actually had to sort of Google that to figure it out. There's a you've got to cast it. In fact, I think I can show you here. Right now, notice when I run this, I get the lowercase r, which is what we would expect, but actually kind of curious. Let's see, can I run it like that? If you remove the casting, notice you get this 114, which is actually the ASCII equivalent to the lowercase r. So that's sort of beyond the scope of this class, and I won't go into it, but feel free to read about that if you're curious about it. Okay, all right, that's all I think I'll do on that. I'll do a real quick. I'll get you started on the project 3.1, and so I'll pause the video, and when we come back, we'll do that. Okay, so I've got a new application here. Let me see if I can drag this down. So this is our project 3.1. This is our letter grade converter. So we are going to enter a numeric number, 1 through 100, and then it's going to return a letter grade. Okay. In addition to that functionality, we also can't be, the program shouldn't accept letters or numbers less than 0 and not greater than 100. So we've also got some sort of validation, if you will, and I think we've got a separate chapter on that, but that would be called validation input is what we would call that, where if a user enters a number that we don't want, how are we going to do it? So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is, again, my standard hello world program is what I've got when I create a new program. So let's create some comments here to sort of give us some method to the madness here. So first thing we're going to do is we need to, it's always good to introduce the program or put some kind of title on the program. So I would say, I'm just going to say like cout statement with program title. You know, in this case, again, I'm looking at the specs that are in the PDF file. The letter grade converter is the first thing that's printed when you run the program with program title. All right, then we're going to do we're going to get input from user, and of course this is going to be get the I'm just going to say get number grade. All right. So now there's a couple things that are encompassed in this single this single task. We're going to need a variable to hold number. So number might be a good one, or might be a good name, and then we're going to need a cout statement that says, in this case, again, I'm looking at the requirements. In fact, I'll just paste it in cout statement, and I'm just going to paste it right in there. Cout statement that says that, and then we'll need a cn statement to assign number to variable. I'm being really explicit here just for the sake of this screencast. If I was programming this up, I probably wouldn't. I would probably just have this single get input from user, rather than sort of breaking it down. But again, everyone works different. So really what I wanted to show you here is that you can do, you can get as sort of sophisticated or, as in-depth with statements if you, as you want to. To check whether the data is valid or not, and a simple if statement would do that. In fact, I'll give you, I'll give you this entire block here just so you can see. So this would look something like this, right? You're going to get the input from the user, assign it to your number variable. So you can simply do, and again, we're getting a bunch of errors here, but that's simply because we haven't created this number variable and a couple other things, but you should be able to get the idea of the logic here. If number is less than 0, so if the user enters a -1, -100, -5, anything like that, then you're going to see out, this number can't be negative. Else if the number is greater than 100, the number's too large. And then the else statement is where you're going to determine the letter grade, right? We can use a series of if statements here. So you can do something like, I'll just give an example of one. If, it would look something like if number is greater than 87, and I think I'll stop right there. Then I'm going to print out, or I'm going to create a letter variable and maybe print out that letter variable. The right way to do it rather than doing a print statement inside these case statements is to have a letter variable that's a character type, and then at the end of the program output the letter grade. Okay, that is all I'm going to do. I don't want to poison the waters any more than that. So good luck, and if you have questions, please let me know.